Melrose Minute. Escaping the friend zone? The hook. Welcome to another Melrose Minute. Today, we're tackling one of the most debated topics in modern dating, the friend zone. Is it a permanent waiting room, or is it just a misunderstanding of boundaries? The premise. We've all seen it in movies. The nice guy or nice girl who waits in the wings, hoping their best friend will finally see them as the one. But today, we're analyzing the psychology behind it. Why does it happen? And can you actually get out? Mismatch of intent. The friend zone usually occurs when there is a mismatch of romantic intent. One person is looking for a deep emotional and physical connection, while the other sees a safe, platonic support system. The safety trap. For the person doing the zoning, the friendship is valuable because it's consistent and low pressure. For the person in the zone, it feels like an endless audition for a role they aren't being cast in. The familiarity effect. Psychology tells us about the familiarity principle. While being close helps attraction, being too familiar can sometimes kill the mystery that is off.
I'm Miles Turner.
And I'm Brianna Stewart.
And our podcast, Game Recognized Game, has never been done before.
Two active players giving you a real look at our lives and what we actually think on and off the court.
Nothing's off limits.
We talk tanking. I might get in trouble for this answer, but I think it's definitely happening in the WNBA.
We talk about our mistakes too. They pulled me to the side and was like, hey man, we got a call last night, man. You can't be rolling around the city like this the night before games.
Check out Game Recognized Game with Stewie and Miles on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Strayed, author of Wild and Tiny Beautiful Things. I'm excited to share that I have a new podcast called Mind Over Mountain. In each episode, I interview athletes, adventurers, and adrenaline seekers to discuss the inner landscapes that informed and inspired their extraordinary feats. So we too can better understand how to face our own seemingly insurmountable challenges. Listen to Mind Over Mountain every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Still the Place with Laura Layton,
Courtney Thorne-Smith,
and Daphne Zuniga, an iHeartRadio podcast. Well, we're back for a Melrose Minute.
Hi, guys.
A couple things came up on that last episode that made us really think.
Yeah, well, it was the getting together of Billy and Allison, who've been living together as roommates platonically. They've each seeing each other, have different dates and different relationships.
Yeah, Allison says, I've watched you clip your toenails how many times?
Going
right.
from friends to romantic.
Well, now they've had a number of discussions about moving their relationship.
Yeah, they have different plans, but they want to. So they've acknowledged that attraction and they're going to go for it. So we were thinking, I asked you guys, and I'm curious if people out there, how common is that to be friends with somebody first for a long time?
Well, we were also overlapping that with keeping the spark alive, that Michael sort of loses interest. So two things, like you have a friend that moves
the two couples on our show
into romance.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep that exciting and new? Because you're friends, you've lived together. How do you get excited about someone you've seen clip his toenails?
But let's start with the first one, because that's really interesting to me about the Billy and Allison. Let's start with that. Like, how, if you guys are friends and you're used to being in a room and being together, is there always a crush? Was there a spark before that you just didn't answer, and then suddenly you're gonna go with the spark?
I think it's so funny that when we were talking about this away from the podcast, and I think, Daphne, you said you'd never dated a friend, or you were never started out as friends and then had somebody you did, which I think is sort of interesting, because Courtney and I both went, yeah, I think we've done that, had that experience, but it also sort of
experience a lot.
So I just want to know how,
but be careful, because you're both my friends, so watch your back.
That's
right.
That's what Billy and Allison are
we could
doing.
make a plan and discuss it ahead of time. Should we take our relationship to the next level?
Was it awkward for you guys
maybe tomorrow night
flipping toenails, and then all of a sudden you have to make out with them? Was that weird?
You know what is weird about it, and it's fun to think about, because I was thinking about it with Billy and Allison. And it's true, because especially if you're good friends and you've spent a lot of time sitting on the couch talking, and you hang out with friends, that all of a sudden you're sitting on the couch and it's are we holding hands now? Are we making out now? You're into that. It's almost like you get to that space in a romantic relationship where you're through the initial, we can't keep our hands off each other, and then you're sitting on the couch watching TV, but you go from sitting on the couch watching TV to making out. It's very
So what is that like for your experiences?
So I've
you
sort of
would
fall
feel.
into the camp, like, you know how there's that question, like when Harry met Sally, can men and women just be friends? You know, that that question, I think that's sort of where it lands for me, is that I think if you have a really great friendship, or in my experience, I had a great friendship with a guy that he clearly wanted to be more, like more in the relationship, and it
Romantic.
wasn't, yeah, and it wasn't like out of the question for me. It just kind of wasn't like a spontaneous, oh yeah, of course. Like it was just, I guess maybe try. And then but for me, like I feel like it ruins the friendship. Like to me, it's kind of my experience of it. It ended up ruining the friendship, and it wasn't like the right plan to try to have it be a romantic relationship. For me, the friendship was really meaningful in what it was, but I felt like the guy wanted more, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll give that a shot. But it's just that spark wasn't there, or whatever that you say. So,
Mhm.
and for me, it ended up
And then you
ruining.
couldn't stay friends.
Yeah, it changed everything. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, bummer.
But did you feel like he was saying, I want more and it's more or nothing?
Yeah, I don't think it was that. It was just changing the nature of our relationship, and trying deliberately, like sort of changing it and trying to see, hey, is this more, ruined the first version of our relationship. Like it just changed it forever. It just wasn't the same.
That's the first thing that marks a difference, right? You act on that holding, you kiss them. You guys kiss each other.
Right.
Then all of a sudden,
And just like, okay, that's different now. And like, I don't know. To me, it
what I
wasn't
don't
like,
understand about it is I have such definite feelings for somebody, or I don't. Like it's just so organic, and it's so like I have an attraction or I don't. So I don't
right.
understand I love this guy, and I have an attraction as a friend, and then I guess it can grow out of that. I mean, I've been with somebody for 18 years now, so there's been a whole, scope of feelings and attractions and relating to each other. But I guess I don't know. I don't get it. Like giving it a go as someone who I just don't feel that attraction to. Or maybe it does. That's why I'm curious.
When it's happened for me, it's that you have a guy friend and you end up spending a lot of time together and spending so much time together. And you call each other a lot, and they're your first call in the morning and your last call at night. And you start to think, well, this is silly. Like,
Yeah.
why do I want to go on a date with someone with whom I don't have much in common when this person's my best friend? Now, having said that, you are right, Daphne, in that there is such a thing as chemistry. And I've had the experience of, even if the chemistry builds, like you start to think or start to talk about it, that it doesn't actually work. And then it's really uncomfortable because you miss that initial coming together attraction, and you're like, ooh, I just really want to be sitting on the couch with
Yeah.
this person. I don't want to be kissing. And then if one of you
Mhm.
wants to be making out,
Mhm.
and the other one is like, ooh, that's not what I wanted. It's brutal. And maybe that's what you're
Right.
talking about, Laura. Like that
Yes.
can
Yeah.
really,
And it just changes the friendship.
well, one person's so excited, and you're like, can we get to the point in our relationship where we're just sitting on the couch again? It's like, it can be really uncomfortable. So it's a real risk. Like you can
Yeah.
really risk a friendship. But
Yeah,
for
I
me,
could
it's
see
come to
that.
the point where you're spending all your time with them. So it's sort of sink or swim. It's like either we go for it, or we have to separate to the point where we can meet somebody else. Because if we're taking up all of each other's intimate
Yeah.
time, we
Yeah.
kind of have to see if it's more or not.
Yeah, I think that's why I've never been friends, like that close of a friends with a guy, because I have always hung out with really the followed that attraction, and then it happens so fast. I've never, even before, even when I was young, I never had like a best buddy that was a guy. It always was like a crush situation, or and then, oh, he asked me out or he didn't. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have brothers growing up. I have one half brother who's 20 years younger. So I didn't have, my dad wasn't around a lot. So I didn't, now that I'm thinking about it, I just didn't have a lot of male energy around. So when I started seeing men, and in a little bit in high school, but then in college and after that, it wasn't like a buddy buddy situation. I wouldn't even know how to do that. They were like a
Mm.
foreign, alien to me. And I was like, I want to know what that is, and so I had to move him in, and we started, so we had, so then I had to learn how to be friends. In fact, in the beginning, I remember one of my earlier boyfriends was like, you can't break up with me every time we have a fight. And I'm like, why not? Get the hell. And so I had to learn, I'm not even joking, like, oh, there's all this other area to relate to the other person. So my friendship comes later. Yeah, it has always come later. And it's something that you have to learn. If it doesn't come natural, like it sounds like it came with you guys, it came really natural to be friends.
I have a lot of guy friends, or even in my youth, I guess that just was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a thing, but it often comes up, right? Like
it does.
I have had that ruin. I only have one close male friend where it never became more or different. And that's the friendship that survived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were just sort of saved by circumstance, meaning we would be dating other people. And so the friendship matured through the attraction phase and just became, we're friends forever. We sort of missed over it. But I got to tell you, now that we're talking about, like, it actually ruined a lot of friendships. But I also think it's really challenging if you're single to be best friends with a guy. It's just too complicated,
tricky,
right?
yeah.
So now my really intimate relationships are with women. Like those are my intimate friendships.
Yeah.
And I have some good guy friends who I see occasionally, but I don't have any guy friends that I hang out with all the time like I used to.
Yeah.
That was a young woman's game.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia, and I'm kicking off a brand new season of my podcast, Math and Magic, Stories from the Frontiers of Marketing. Math and Magic takes you behind the scenes of the biggest businesses and industries while sharing insights from the smartest minds in marketing. I'm talking to leaders from the entertainment industry to finance and everywhere in between. This season on Math and Magic, I'm talking to CEO of Liquid Death, Mike Cesario, financier and public health advocate, Mike Milken, Take-Two Interactive CEO, Strauss Zelnick.
If you're unable to take meaningful creative risk and therefore run the risk of making horrible creative mistakes, then you can't play in this business.
Sesame Street CEO Sherry Weston and our own Chief Business Officer, Lisa Coffey.
Making consumers see the value of the human voice and to have that guaranteed human promise behind it really makes it rise to the top.
Listen to Math and Magic, Stories from the Frontiers of Marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast.
Will Ferrell's Big Money Players and iHeart Podcast presents Soccer Moms.
So I'm Leanne. Yeah. This is my best friend Janet.
Hey.
And we have been joined at the hip since high school.
Absolutely.
Now a redacted amount of years later, we're still joined at the hip.
Just a little bit bigger hips, wider.
This is a podcast. We're recording it as we tailgate our youth soccer games in the back of my Honda Odyssey.
With all the snacks and drinks.
Sidebar, why did you get hard seltzer instead of beer?
Oh, they had a BOGO.
Well, then you got it. Do you want a White Claw or something? Here, just take it.
What are y'all doing? Microphones? Are you making a rap album? I wish. I would buy it.
Cuts through the defense like a hot knife through sponge cake.
That sounds delicious.
Good. Oh, you're lucky I'm not a drug addict. You're lucky I'm not an alcoholic. You're lucky I'm not a killer.
I love this team, and I'm really trying to be a figure in their lives that they can rely on.
Listen to Soccer Moms on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I feel like it was a little bit unbelievable until I really started making money.
It's Financial Literacy Month, and the podcast Eating While Broke is bringing real conversations about money, growth, and building your future. This month, hear from top streamer Zoe Spencer and venture capitalist Lakeisha Landrum-Pierre as they share their journeys from starting out to leveling up.
If I'm outside with my parents and they're seeing all these people come up to me for pictures, it's like, what? Today now, obviously, it's like 100%. They believe everything, but at first it was just like, you gotta go get a real job.
There's an economic component to communities thriving. If there's not enough money and entrepreneurship happening in communities, they fail. And what I mean by fail is they don't have money to pay for food, they cannot feed their kids, they do not have homes. Communities don't work unless there's money flowing through them.
Listen to Eating While Broke from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Anna Navarro, and on my new podcast, Bleep with Anna Navarro, I'm talking to the people closest to the biggest issues happening in your community and around the world. Because I know deep down inside right now, we are all cursing and asking what the bleep is going on. I'm talking to people like Julie K. Brown, who broke the explosive story on Jeffrey Epstein in 2018. These victims have been let down time and time again for decades and decades and decades by local law enforcement, by federal law enforcement, by administration after administration.
The Justice Department, through, I think we counted 4 presidential administrations, failed these victims.
Listen to Bleep with Anna Navarro as part of the My Cultura podcast network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, it's Alec Baldwin. This season on my podcast, Here's the Thing, I'm speaking with more artists, policymakers, and performers like composer Mark Shaman.
Once you've established that you have the talent, it's about the hang. It's the pleasure of hanging out with the people that you're with. You know, Rob and I was always a great hang. We would sit in kibitz for hours and then eventually get around to the music. That's what I mostly think of when I think of him, the time together laughing.
Lawyer Robbie Kaplan.
The great gift of being a lawyer is the ability to actually change things in our society in a way that very few people can. I mean, you can really make a difference to causes in the United States if you bring the right case at the right time and
Marriage
win.
equality.
Yeah, Windsor's the perfect example.
And journalist Chris Whipple.
Every White House staffer, they work in a bubble called the West Wing, and it's exponentially more so in the Trump White House.
Listen to the new season of Here's the Thing on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Once you do move in with someone,
which you seem to do right away.
I do right away.
Immediately.
For Daphne on the second date.
Right away. And
you know what this means, don't you?
Second date. And by the way, like, we're together 18 years later, and that was a good first date. But I do remember when we first moved in, and I've lived with other men too, and I was just like, oh my God, they're totally different, you know, I think you have to have your own bathroom if that's possible.
Separate bathrooms are key.
For sure.
Super key.
Super important. If you can possibly have separate bathrooms.
Yeah.
If you can possibly have a separate,
for sure,
one entrance with 2 different apartments would be lovely. I would love that.
Houses next door, even better.
Houses with separate houses would be amazing. I think I'm onto something there, to be honest. Because
well, you know, a friend of mine was talking to an architect friend, and they were saying the new thing is you have your own space.
Even better, like a duplex where.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Now we're talking. But definitely your own bathrooms, and definitely you just have to learn to find the sexiness, even though you've seen all the other stuff. I've heard people say, like, when you're getting ready to go out to dinner, you just don't want to be in the bathroom if you only have one at the same time. You don't want to get too familiar and comfortable with each other. You just don't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm a believer in keeping the bathroom door closed. I am not one of those people who says, you know what real intimacy is?
Yeah.
Being in the bathroom together.
Or pee with the door open. No.
Yes, I agree. I'm not a fan. I think for some people that's the height of romance. I am not one of those people.
Yeah. It's hard to unsee certain, intimacy.
Yeah, I see enough of my dogs going to the bathroom. I don't need to bring that into my human life.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I would like to see in our comments if people want to comment on their tricks, because I think that it's a really good ongoing issue for people if you're going to live with someone and if your marriage is going to last.
And stay romantic and sexy and fun.
Yeah. As someone who's about to celebrate 27 years of marriage.
Woo-hoo! Well, give us your number one secret to it.
I'm going to admit that we have separate bathrooms.
Yeah,
that's nice.
And I know not everybody has that luxury, and I do.
It's such a luxury.
I do.
Well, they can always use the one down at the gas station if you don't want to.
They can use they can
where they leave the seats up anyway.
They're guys. They can go outside. They can go outside. They're fine. Pretend they're camping.
God. He's got a perfect solution. All right,
give him a shovel and a leaf. He'll be fine.
Yeah. Behind the shed. You're good. I put your shaving stuff in a little hanging mirror. All right, good. This is good.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, that
was super fun. All right.
Super
so much fun, you guys, as always. All right, guys.
See you
We'll
guys soon.
see you in a few days.